Brellas. Love them or hate them, they're definitely one of the weapon classes in Splatoon 3, and unfortunately, I think the developers kinda hate them more than love them. Hey everyone, I'm Yaga. I'm a prolific Brella player, apparently. And so, my interest in this class has led me to some very dark places. Because in Splatoon 3, Brellas are just not allowed to thrive. And I want to talk about that. In this video, I want to cover what problems Brellas have in Splatoon 3, why they're not seeing success in competitive, why does it feel so impossible to play them in solo, what I think could be done to fix it, and just in general, why is it important to buff Brellas? Why is it important for Brellas to be good? So, let's start from the beginning. What even are Brellas? Brellas are designed to be the shotguns of Splatoon. They are weapons that fire pellets that are most effective in close range and do extremely high damage if they are able to connect every single pellet they fire. To adapt to Splatoon's very fast pace, they are given a shield to close the distance and also potentially play into a different style, where you just hold space and waste your opponent's resources as much as possible so your team has an advantage in a team fight. On paper that sounds amazing, right? But in reality it doesn't work out, due to a lot of factors. First of all, Brellas have quite poor matchups in this game, both to main weapons and special weapons. I will cover main weapons in a different section, but as for special weapons, it might actually not be that big of a deal, because while yes, you're easily displaced and shredded by a lot of specials, you're still playing to that strength of draining resources. The other thing about Brellas is that as a class, they're fairly weak. Because of their shield, they're intentionally designed to be a bit weaker than other weapons, because, it would be very busted to have a weapon that can both block damage and be an amazing weapon on top of that, right? Am I right? That would be crazy. Imagine if 52 was splash full on a booyah bomb. Huh. Absurd. But yeah, we are making a weaker weapon that has a shield to make up for it. And that's the problem. In this game, the shield is also very weak. Brellas can't play for either being a good main weapon or being a good shield weapon. So they end up doing neither, and they suffer greatly for it. To talk about why Brellas suck so much, I want to present to you a little chart I made, which showcases how I view the matchups Brellas have in this game. Don't take this as gospel, this is just very rough idea I have of what Brellas are good against and what Brellas are bad against. So, at the top, the best matchup Brellas have is Splatlings. Splatlings actually have a negative damage multiplier to Brellas shield, and because they have a charge time, Brellas have a very easy time playing in the rhythm of the Splatling, shooting when they're firing, and moving forward and shooting themselves when the Splatling is recharging. So Brellas have a very easy advantage there. It's a very good matchup for them. Next up are the two classes Brellas probably were designed to counter directly, shooters and duelies. While not as good of a matchup as Splatlings, they still provide some very nice 1v1 scenarios for Brellas, as Brellas can just shoot their shots very easily and then fire back with their usually solid close range damage. So as long as the Brella player can get in, they have a very easy time. The neutral matchups, which I don't even want to talk about much, are rowers and brushers. Because of just how differently brushers and rowers play compared to every other weapon in this game, it's really hard to match them up to Brellas, because it feels like you're doing completely different things in different universes. That's why I think they're fairly neutral. Now for the matchup that Brellas are disadvantaged in. So the first one is chargers. While chargers are not the worst in a 1v1 scenario for the most part, it is very notable that most chargers just one-shot Brella shields. And while in a 1v1 scenario that may not be the most impactful, keep it in mind, keep that ability to break Brella's shield in mind. Now the other matchup is sloshers. Now, sloshers have a very clear advantage over brellas, and that is that they can simply fire over the shield. They don't particularly care if your shield is up or not, they can just slosh over it and ignore it. But that ability is fairly limited, and it also reduces their kill time greatly, so brella players still have some way to deal with a slosher. So, now we're getting to the proper bad matchup for brellas. Ones that you're unlikely to win unless there's a major skill difference or there's some kind of advantage on your team's side. And first up are stringers. Stringers overall are not that common, so this matchup doesn't come up that often, but stringers have amazing object damage versus brella shield, and they can ignore the brella shield by curving their shots over it. So it's kind of like slosher and charger combined. Plus, since Bowstring and regular Stringer have explosive projectiles, they can circumvent brella shield that way. Unlike most other explosive projectiles in the game, once a launch shield passes through those projectiles, it doesn't explode them. It just goes straight on through, and the player who is following the shield will take damage. The other fairly bad matchup, blasters. Just as sloshers, they can ignore your shield, but way more easily. And to add to that, they have, on average, quite good shield damage, so even if they can't for some reason hit over your shield, they can still make quick work of it, just firing it directly. There are still opportunities for Brella to close the distance and just kill the blaster player straight up, due to the nature of blaster dead zones, but it is still a very difficult matchup that Brellas don't enjoy having. And then there's one fucker. Splatanas kind of just don't give Brellas any space to exist because of just how many advantages they have over a Brella. So, well-known fact, Splatanas have amazing object damage. That extends to Brella shields. Splatanas can 2-3 shot almost all Brella shields with their charged slashes, and even with uncharged slashes they do a ton, so they can shred Brella shields in absolutely no time. So spacing them out becomes extremely difficult if you're trying to flare your shield, because you will just get shredded, and because of how Brella's stun works, you will likely get killed. To add to the disadvantage, Splatanas also have amazing range. They generally outrange Brellas. They can dance circles around you, and you can't really reach them. Spacing them becomes not an option, so you might think, oh, I'll just get close to them. Wrong. Splatanas have a melee attack, which generally kills faster than any Brella 2-shot or 3-shot in case of undercover. So the only chance you have if you're a 10 player and hit the 1-shot. So you can't space them out, you can't run in for the kill unlike blasters. So you might think you're just oh, okay, I'll just avoid the Splatana player. Wrong. Because of their amazing range and amazing object damage at range with no damage follow, they can just shred your shield and let their teammates deal with you. They don't even have to interact with you directly to kill you. Brellas, as I mentioned in the previous section, they're designed around being weapons that are kind of bad without their shield, and the shield makes up for that. But if you don't have a shield, you're just one of the worst weapons in the game. And remember how I told you to put a pin in the charger's ability to shred your shield in one shot? Yeah, Splatanas can do that too, and they have way less charge time. And on top of that, they're front lines, so they can spend no time at all just quickly shredding your shield and continuing about their business. They don't have to space you out as much as chargers. They don't have to concern themselves with trying to win the 1v1 if you get close. They just shred your shield, go on about their business, and if you try to approach them, you're dead. And this is ultimately why I think Splatanas are so unfair. Not only are they amazing at dealing with Brellas 1v1, not only are they so amazing at dealing with Brellas in a team setting, they don't allow Brellas any openings, unlike blasters or sloshers, where you have a clear advantage you can play to. And so this paints a pretty clear picture of why I think Brellas struggle so much. They have a lot of bad matchups and not a lot of good ones. And the good matchups they do have are not the most impactful. Splatlings are fairly rare because of the prevalence of different weapons that outclass them in their slots. The shooters that get played are generally, short-range supports. There's not a lot of value in having a dedicated weapon to counter those. And duelies end up being the only good matchup that's actually of any worth for Brellas. And so it becomes a very questionable decision to pick a Brella, since they don't have a lot of good matchups on their own, and they're not strong enough weapons to carry any sort of value outside of those matchups. And so, what can be done about this? For fun, I decided to make some fake patch notes of just changes that I think would make Brellas way better than they are now, and allow them to see way more competitive use for people who decide to invest their time into this class. So first, I will go over the universal changes I made. First up, we're going to address Brella's worst matchup, that being splatanas. I universally nerfed all splatanas damage versus Brella shield by 50%, except for Tenta Brella. I will put up on the screen right now how many shots does it take each splatana to shred each Brella shield now, so you can see just how much of a difference it makes. Splatanas still have a very strong matchup versus Brella, but it's no longer to the point where the weapon class has no chance of competing with splatanas. The second change I'm making might be a bit more controversial, but I am taking away Brella's RNG. So, shotguns in most games are famous for being inaccurate, and in a lot of those games they also have randomized pellet patterns. So, each shot you make might deal a varying amount of damage just based on that RNG. Because every single weapon in Splatoon is projectile based, it works a bit differently. Each Brella pellet travels at their own set velocity, which gets randomized, and that results in Brellas having essentially randomized damage at certain ranges. My idea that would just take that out, delete that, this is no longer a thing. Brellas now deal consistent damage with every shot they take. Because I think that RNG is one of the worst ways to balance weapons. And Brellas are one of the only few classes that have RNG they can't deal with. There's no sort of mitigation mechanic to avoid it. So now Brellas, instead of dealing 80 damage, 50 damage, 30 damage, all at the same range, aiming at the same target, not moving the cursor at all, instead they will deal a consistent 80 damage every single time. So they are now way more viable as options to fight. They don't need to close the gap as hard to ensure that they can actually kill someone. And now let's go into some individual changes I made to weapons, starting with Undercover Brella. I think Undercover, out of all Brellas, is the most underrated one as a main, but its kits... Okay, let's not look at that, okay? So, as long as you ignore the horrendous kits it has, it's actually a pretty solid main. Even if it has way less HP than regular Brella, because of the nature of the fast shredding options in this game, due to its unique shield regeneration mechanic on kill or assist, plus it's regenerating way faster than regular Brella, it actually has way more shield uptime. And so that allows it to be a way better matchup into the few good classes Brellas do match up into, that being Spotlings, shooters, and duelies. And so to play a bit into that more, to make it a more consistent counter to those kind of weapons, we're going to buff its damage from 40 to 45. As of right now, every single undercover pellet does 12 damage, and it fires way more pellets to deal 45 damage. In fact, you need to connect the same number of pellets to deal 40 damage and 45 damage, so you won't even notice that change much when actually trying to aim at someone. But you will do way more consistent damage to targets close to you and be able to finish them off more easily if they already took some sort of chip damage. Plus, you now have a shield combo, because 45 plus 45 plus 15 allows you to kill your opponent in just 2 shots and 1 shield bomb, which it's extremely sad this is already not a thing. Why does Nintendo hate this weapon so much? Oh my god. On top of the change, we'll also be reducing its damage spread radius by approximately 10%, just to allow it to hit its pellets a bit more easily and extend its effective kill range. So now Undercover is a very strong option versus close-range weapons in this game. Let's just pray somehow, some way, its kits get buffed to be worth it for it to get picked. Next up, we have the poster child of the class, Brella. This poor weapon had like one of the worst falls from grace this series has ever seen, and I don't think I'm exaggerating much. In Splatoon 2, at a certain point, this was one of the best main weapons in the game. To later get nerfed to, while a still respectable state, it was a shadow of its former self, and by the end of the meta, it just ended up outpaced by the likes of 52k Gao, where it just couldn't compete with them unless you were a crazy dedicated specialist. And in Splatoon 3, this weapon just did not survive the transition, while being extremely broken on launch. It's just very sad to see. So let's give this Titan a bit of its previous power back. We will be increasing its pellet damage from 16.2 to 19.0. This makes its pellet damage spreads way better, allowing it to go from killing in 7 pellets to killing just in 6. This is a pretty big change, and arguably it's even better than giving it 90 damage, because it makes its partial hits way better, not just the max hit, so it can combo with melee options. I think this is a very strong buff to give it, alongside the previously mentioned RNG spread removal and having its Splatana matchup patched up, since now it can get in close to the Splatana and guarantee a 2-shot kill. Honestly, other than that, I don't think Brella needs much to be actually viable. It needed those pushes to make it, again, a very strong option for countering short-range weapons and being a strong fighter. Next, we have my weapon, Brella. I think Tent is already a really good weapon, so it really doesn't need that many buffs to see even more success in competitive, because it already appears quite often in both Western and Japanese tournaments. But I still want to give it some buffs, because I like myself. So, first of all, unlike other Brellas, I'm giving Tent only 25% reduction to Splatana damage. It already has quite a good matchup versus Splatanas just because they can one-shot them if they get into its range. So it just needs a little help dealing with Viper in particular, so it can't just shred its shield by lightly tapping it a couple of times. Next up, I will be making one single change to Tent's stats, and that is a 6% reduction in pellet spread, just so it can be a little bit more consistent when dealing at opponents at range. And lastly, we have the new addition to the Brella roster in this game, that being Recycled Brella. And man, this weapon tortured me so much when it came out, because on paper it seems like a fun side grade to Tent, where it's a Brella that's focused all around launching its shield. But in practice it just doesn't have a shield, and it just doesn't have a main either. At least it didn't until they buffed its paint enough where it didn't feel absolutely miserable. So Recycled whole thing is that it has high midline damage capabilities. It does 90 damage pretty consistently at a solid range. It's fairly mobile, it paints fairly well, and so to make up for that it has a paperweight shield. Literally, it's made of paper. It can tank like 0 shots from anything, so it feels the least like a Brella because it uses its shield more for moving around and general mobility than it does for tanking shots. And so instead of trying to make it a proper Brella, we'll play into that. We'll give Recycled more ways to just be a solid main weapon outside of its shield. So first of all, it's a change to something that bothered me so much, because Recycled is obviously based off bamboo, but unlike that weapon, it's not lightweight, it's normal weight. So we'll be changing that. Being a lightweight weapon effectively gives you 2 subs of run speed and swim speed, making you generally faster at moving around the stage, which Recycled would really appreciate to both close the gap and being able to swim and just in general keep up with its shield more. Another change we'll introduce to make it a way more mobile weapon is removing hit stun for getting its shield destroyed while it's flared. Because its shield gets shredded so easily, I don't think it's fair for Recycled to have the same punishment as other Brellas for having it shredded. It's designed around having its shield constantly destroyed and then regenerated, so I think it's better to allow it to fire immediately after it gets destroyed and swim and do anything else. Its kits still limit it a lot since it has two of the arguably worst subs in the game, but with those changes, alongside the universal changes made to Brellas, I think Recycled could have a solid shot at being this kind of niche pick you sometimes switch to depending on circumstance. And there we go. I think with all those changes, the main weapons of Brellas are now in a really solid spot. But there is a bit of an elephant in the room, isn't there? I mentioned in the Recycled and Undercover sections that Brellas have some troubling kits, so I want to go into that a bit more, because I think while the main weapons of Brellas are definitely the most important issue with the class, the kits still have some complications that could prevent Brellas from reaching their full potential. I will intentionally be brief in this section, as this is a video about Brellas, not about subs and specials. So, just like fire round. I think that Splat Brella has two quite solid kits. So we have a jetpack kit, which is really solid, has a cheap auto bomb, it has a jetpack which has amazing synergy with the Brella shield, and now with Brella having a more Slayer kind of style of play available to it, it can definitely take advantage of that kind of kit. I think that strikes, while having extremely poor synergy with regular Brella, because of them limiting your mobility when you pop them, it still provides a valuable way to counter Jetpack's greatest weakness, that being Big Bubbler. So whenever you're facing a team which runs, say, 1 or 2 Big Bubblers, you can just swap to the Strike Kit, and now you see way more success. What I would want to see from those two kits changed is obviously allow Jetpack to deal more damage to Bubble, because I think it's way too undertuned in that area. I think Jetpack should definitely shred Bubbler instead of being completely negated by it. But also, I think that the regular kit should see some love. Sprinkler is a fairly solid sub on Brella, but definitely has fallen behind in recent years, so some minor changes to it could help, but more than anything, I want to see changes to Triple Ink Strike, mainly limiting its spammability and damage radius, and instead providing it with an option to swim, just like other specials like Trizuka, for example. So then it becomes a way better fit umbrella. And while we're at it, let's lower the points for special from 200p to 190, because there's just no reason for it to be 200p when Splatter Shot with Spot Bomb Tri-Strike at 190p exists, yeah. After that we have Tent. I think all 3 Tent kits are fairly solid, with one being the obvious good one, being Zuka Ink Mine. There's no notes, that one shouldn't get any changes, but the other 2 could use some work. Inkwork is legit my least favorite special in this game. Disregarding the copious amounts of jank it has, the one change that would make me actually like the special is introducing the same mechanic as Ballad had, where at any time you can choose instead to explode on the spot. This would make you trade off your long-range shot for a self-defense option and a way to keep momentum up, where maybe your team already got 4 people, so now your Inkwork has no use. So instead you can just explode on the spot and keep going. Inkwork is way too passive at times and easily rushed down in moments where you would just rather not have it for its entire duration. Especially when splatanas, which can kill you through the Inkwork, exist. Now, the Barra Tent kit with Toxic Mist and Super Chumps, I talked about in the other video, so I won't go into it at all here. Go watch that one instead. So, I think the kit situation for Tentabrella and Splatbrella, while they definitely have some issues, given the right buffs to the mains and maybe specials, they could absolutely see more use. Now, for Undercover and Recycled, that's not so easy, as I think their kits are a huge part of why they barely see any success at all. Starting with Undercover, it has been dealt one of the dirtiest hands in this whole game, just because it's a relatively weak main weapon, with kits that absolutely do not let it shine in any regard. The vanilla kit is complete nonsense. It's with a defensive sub with an aggressive special that puts you in a dangerous situation on purpose, which just breaks any sort of flow you could hope to have. Literally the only purpose Ink Mine and Riftside serve is to provide zones cheese opportunities, you Ink Mines on the zone, then you just exist as an undercover Brella in front of the zone, and then when time comes you Riftside the cheese zone. That's the only thing this kit can do. It's nonsensical. The kit clashes with itself and with the main, and it just doesn't work out. The second kit has the ableism special. Hooray! Torpedo is definitely the best sub Undercover has in this game, which isn't a high bar to clear, to be perfectly honest, but whatever. But Screen just has zero utility for Undercover itself. And Screen, even ignoring all the issues with accessibility it has, is just in my opinion, really weak and just not worth using. Unless it's a weapon that utilizes its sharking potential to the fullest, like Tri-Slosher. But Undercover in no universe could do that, unless either gets a rework. Which I honestly do hope that Screen gets a major rework in a future patch that allows Undercover to use it to more effect. And lastly we have the funniest prank Nogami ever pulled on me, which is fucking patterns the P Undercover. This Curling Bomb and Killer Whale, which references no kit, just pulled out completely out of nowhere, has little synergy with Undercover itself in its current state, because every single piece is designed around the main weapon being strong enough to take advantage of those, but it just absolutely isn't. Curling Bomb, while providing some solid mobility, doesn't help with Undercover skill time, so it just puts you in a position where it's okay, you've arrived, now you can't actually kill anyone because you're undercover with one of the slowest free shots in the game. And then I guess you can escape with Curling Bomb and you can pain a bit, but literally any other bomb would have been more helpful. And Killer Whale is the most selfish quote-unquote support option in this game, where it's yeah, technically you can aim it at other people to help your teammates, but more often than not you are the best person to actually make use of it. And Undercover isn't really the best weapon to make use of Killer Whale, so it's just it's definitely better than the vanilla kit, but it kind of has the same problem where it's just it needed to be on a different weapon for it to really shine, and Undercover really does not benefit much from either option on that kit. So to sum up, the only hope Undercover has in terms of the kits if a Screen gets magically reworked into a support special, which I really, really, really doubt is ever going to happen unless it's Splatoon 4. Now lastly, there's Recycled Brella. This one is fairly simple. Both specials are very solid on Recycled, but it has just no subs. Angle Shooter is a joke, and so is Toxic Mist, because they're just weak as the subs. And Recycled really wants to have some additional form of damage to help with this fairly slow kill time, just to have more combos, but Angle Shooter I guess does that, but it's Angle Shooter, so it's only single target damage. It's very limited. Toxic Mist is just a nothing burger of a sub on Recycled, it just doesn't do much. So even with some solid specials being Big Bubbler and Triple Splashdown, it can't achieve much, because both the main and the subs are weak enough for it to be out of play for most of the game. And that about does it. Now, I bet you're wondering, after sitting for 28 minutes of this goddamn video, why does any of this matter? Why should we care about Brellas? Well, my answer would be that Brellas are cool. I like playing Brellas, I like facing Brellas. I think it's a very dynamic class which introduces depth to Splatoon's combat. It adds a whole different dimension to team fights, which just no other class provides. But in a more pragmatic sense, Brellas matter because in Splatoon's free, high-paced meta, there just needs to be something that slows it down, that gives it more structure, gives it space, more times to breathe. Because as it is, this game is so breakneck fast that it's hard to keep up, not only for the players themselves, but also for spectators. So having a playstyle be viable that allows just that, slower, more methodical gameplay, would do wonders for the game, both on the competitive side and the spectator side. So, thank you so much for listening to my ideas on how to improve brellas. Big thank you to Herald for providing additional footage with my changes implemented into the game. They were a huge help for giving this video some more life and inspiring me to make it a more edited and high-value production. But with that, that's all I had to say. Like, subscribe, follow me on Blue Sky, and goodbye!